Alright, so in this video we're going to go over the different arithmetic operators in Java. So arithmetic operators, or just math operators, are going to be used to perform some kind of mathematical operations on numeric values. So primarily we're going to be looking at things that use these 6 numeric data types. So we had our 4 integer data types, byte, short, int, and long, as well as our 2 floating point data types, float and double. So any of these math operations that we want to do are going to be used on those 6 data types. There are going to be 3 types of arithmetic operators. More precisely, in the Java programming language, we're really just going to be focused on 2, which is the unary operators and the binary operators. There is also a third, which is ternary operators, but in Java, as we'll see in a moment, there's only one ternary operator, and it's not really related to arithmetic. So going through each of these, unary operators are going to require only a single operand. For example, the negation operator is unary, so when you have that little minus sign in front of a number to indicate that it should be negative, say like this int negative number is equal to -1, this is going to be used to indicate what we would refer to as unary negation. So this is one example of a unary operator. With binary operators, these are going to require 2 operands. So this would include things like addition and subtraction. Those are going to be binary operations. So you'll see like an int sum. So you can see the addition symbol, so that's your operator. And then you can see the numbers 5 and 6. So there's 2 operands you need to use with addition, indicating that that's a binary operation. And then with ternary operators, these are going to require 3 operands. In Java, there's only going to be one ternary operator, which is used with conditional code, which we'll discuss in the next chapter. So unlike the other 2, our unary and binary operators, there's no arithmetic operator that's a ternary operator. So now to kind of break down the list of different binary operators that we have in Java, specifically binary arithmetic operators. So you'll see 4 in this list that you probably recognize already. These are pretty standard math operations. They include addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So you've got the typical characters for these. You've got a plus sign for addition. You've got that minus sign or the hyphen character for subtraction. You've got the little asterisk or star character for multiplication. And then you've got the / for division. And then seeing an example of each of these. So we've got things like int total is going to be equal to 10 plus 5. I've then also included the result of that operation. So if you do 10 plus 5, that would give you 15. We have int diff equal to 10 minus 5. The result is 5. Int product is equal to 10 times 5. The result there would be 50. Or an int quotient is equal to 10 divided by 5. So the result there is 2. So for each one of these, keep in mind that if you're trying to get the result of addition, that's a sum. The result of a subtraction, that's a difference. The result of a multiplication, that's a product. And the result of a division, that's a quotient. So in addition to these 4 math operators, there's also going to be a 5th operator that you might be less familiar with, which is the modulus or modulo operator. So the way that this one's going to work, so we've got an example here where we're saying int remainder is equal to 10, we'll say 10 mod 3. So anytime you see that percent symbol, that's going to be shorthanded to just mod. So we're doing 10 mod 3, and what it's going to do is it's going to do 10 divided by 3, and then instead of looking at the quotient that you get at the end, it's instead only going to look at the remainder. So if you do 10 divided by 3, the quotient would be 3, but then you would also have a leftover 1 or a remainder of 1. So the result, if you see in that rightmost column, is going to be 1. And of course, if you do this with numbers that divide evenly into each other, so say if we did, instead of 10 mod 3, we did 10 mod 5, so kind of following the same examples as before. Since 5 can go into 10 evenly, so there's no remainder, your result there would be 0. So let's go ahead and minimize this. I'm going to come over here and create a new project. So we're going to make a new Java application. And this is going to be for our math operators. So we'll just go ahead and call it that. So math operators. Go ahead and finish. We'll then go ahead and start cleaning up all this code, removing the extra comments that we're not going to need. Kind of adjusting the style with our curly braces. And then right here, we'll go ahead and start adding in some code. So what I'm going to go ahead and do right here is just write out each one of those 5 different examples that we had. And then I'm also going to include 5 print statements to just print each one of those results to the console. So we're going to do int total. This is going to be equal to 10 plus 5. We'll then do int diff, so that'll be short for difference. This is equal to 10 minus 5. We'll then go ahead and do int product. That's going to be equal to 10 times 5. We'll then do int quotient. This is going to be equal to 10 divided by 5. And finally, we'll do int remainder. And this will be equal to 10 mod 3. We'll then have our 5 print statements. So we're going to say system.out.println. And we'll go ahead and print out total. Let's go ahead and just grab this, since we're going to need to do this a couple more times. So we'll go ahead and copy that, and we'll paste that 4 more times. For the second one, we're going to do diff. For the third one, we're going to do product. For this fourth one, we're going to do quotient. And for this fifth one, we're going to do remainder. So we're just going to go ahead and take each one of these results, so the result of those math operations being stored into these variables total, diff, product, quotient, and remainder, and we're just going to go ahead and print that to the console. So we'll go ahead and run this, and we can see we've got our 15 for our total, 10 plus 5. We've got 5 for our diff, 10 minus 5. We've got 50 for our product, 10 times 5. And we have 2 for our quotient, 10 divided by 5. And then we've got 1 for our remainder with 10 mod 3. Okay, so this is showing us if we want to do these math operations just using 2 literal numeric values, so just the actual values themselves, but we can also do this with variables that hold numeric values in our Java programs. So if we wanted to, instead of putting 10 and 5 as just those literal values in the our addition operation, we could just go ahead and create 2 variables. So we could have like num1 and num2. Each one of these will hold those values, 10 and 5, and we'll just go ahead and add the 2 variables together. So if we go ahead and do this, so let's go ahead and create, let's say underneath these 5, we'll just go ahead and start another portion of this for this example. So we've got int num1 is going to be equal to 10, we've got int num2 is equal to 5, and then we've got int sum, and that's going to be equal to num1 plus num2. And then right here, I'm going to go ahead and write in a slightly more complex statement that I want to print to the console to go ahead and get each one of these. So we're going to say system.out.println. And right here, what I'm going to go ahead and do is say I want to do num1 plus num2 is equal to, and whatever sum is. So we're going to put num1, that's going to be our first variable. We then need a plus sign because we're going to concatenate to that the literal plus sign that's going to go between them. We'll have our quotes. Inside of here, we're going to do 2 spaces, and then we'll have a plus sign between each of those spaces. So it's essentially going to be up to this much of our statement so far. We'll then do another concatenation. On the next side of that, we're going to do another variable, so we're going to do num2. We'll then go ahead and do the same thing that we did right here, but now for the equal sign. So say concatenate, got our literal, 2 spaces with an equal sign between them. And then finally at the very end, we're going to have one more concatenation. So we're going to say plus, and then we're going to put sum here. Okay, so the end result is going to be num1, which holds the value 10, plus num2, which holds the value, is equal to sum, and sum is going to hold the result of num1 plus num2 that we got right here. So if we run this, we can see the entire result, 10 plus 5 equals 15. So So we're getting the 10, 5, and 15 from our variables, but we're getting the plus and equal sign as well as any of the spaces that we need between these from our two string literals that we included in that print statement. Okay. Coming back over here. So now I want to take a moment to discuss a little bit about how certain operations are handled in Java, or really in most programming languages in general. So consider the following operation. So we've got double quotient. So in this case now we're using double as our data type to hold the result of this 5 divided by 2. Naturally that would make sense because if we do 5 divided by 2, that should give us the value 2.5. So since 2.5 has that fractional or that decimal portion, the 0.5, we want to make sure that we're storing that into a variable whose data type matches with that. So in this case, we need to make sure that we're putting it into a double, so some kind of floating point data type. So the expected result after we perform the division is that the value assigned to quotient should be 2.5. So let's go ahead and actually test this and see what happens. So we'll come over here. For this one, we'll just go ahead and do let's see, this will be quotient 2 since we've got 1 already. This is going to be equal to 5 divided by 2. Keep in mind that I'm calling this one quotient 2 right here because we have a quotient right here already. So using this in a print statement, we're just going to go ahead and put in quotient 2 right here. I'll save that, and then we'll go ahead and run this. And when we get the result, it is actually not going to give us 2.5, it's going to give us 2.0. So then the question is, well, why exactly did it do that? So when we perform our print statement, we get the value 2, or really 2.0 since it's a double. So the problem is that when we went to perform our division, so when we were trying to do the actual math operation itself, the 5 and 2, our two operands that we used, are both being treated as integer values because they don't have something like, say, 5.0 or 2.0. We just said 5 and 2. Java is going to interpret those as integers. So when it does the division, it's going to divide it as if those were two integers, meaning that the result that it gets will also be treated as an integer. So this is what is known as integer division. So the result of this operation will always be an integer as well. And so if we do 5 divided by 2, just normally that would be 2.5, but 2.5 is not an integer value. It has that fractional portion to it. So in order to kind of correct for that, what Java is going to do is it's just going to truncate or remove that decimal portion. So basically the end result is just going to be 2. So then when we store that into our variable quotient, the value that we're storing into it is just going to be 2. And then when we print that to the console, it's going to be printed in the formatting of a double, so it's going to have 2.0. So that's the result that we end up seeing. So a little bit later, we'll go ahead and talk about how to actually go about correcting this. For now, I just want you to keep in mind that this is a particular issue that you could run into, particularly with division, essentially needing to make sure that if you're going to do a division, that the numbers that you're using are doubles. So when we're dealing with mathematical operations, just like in the real world, you have to keep in mind the idea of operator precedence. So what sorts of operations do you have to perform before other operations? So in Java, all of our math operations will follow the usual rules for precedence. So if we deal with unary negation, saying that a number is negative, that has the highest precedence. If we deal with something like multiplication or division, we know that those have higher precedence than addition or subtraction. If you see multiplication and addition all at once in a math problem, you know that you're supposed to do the multiplication before the addition. One additional thing to keep in mind, because we added that modulus operator to this, it is important to keep in mind that the modulus operator has the same precedence as multiplication and division. So let's go ahead and create a fairly simple problem just to demonstrate this. So for this one, I'll just go ahead and use an integer, and we'll say this is result. This is going to be equal to 10 plus 5 times 2. So if we do something like this, keep in mind that our multiplication has higher precedence than our addition, so we're going to do that first. We'll do 5 times 2. That's going to give us 10. We'll then do the addition, so we'll do 10 plus 10. That will give us 20. So if we go ahead and print this to the console, and we run that, we will see that we get the value 20 right here. So just going ahead and printing out result. Another thing to keep in mind about precedence is that if we're using parentheses, these will be used to group together certain parts of our mathematical expressions, and anything inside of those parentheses will have a higher precedence than anything outside of them. So if we again take that same example, so this 10 plus 5 times 2, but now I just go ahead and put parentheses around this portion right here. Well, now everything right here will have a higher precedence than anything outside of it. So we're going to do 10 plus 5 first. That will give us 15. We'll then multiply that by 2. And so now this final result here will instead be 30. So if we run this, we can go ahead and get that value of 30 right there instead. Alright, so the last thing I want to talk about with arithmetic operators is the math class. So this is going to offer a few other methods. So you can kind of think of it like the print method that we've been using from that system class. So the math class is going to give us some other methods that we can use to perform other arithmetic operations. So a couple of examples of these include things like math.pow. So this allows us to use the pow method to get the particular power for some number. So say for example you want to do like 4 squared. You could do something like double number equal to 4. We'll then do double square is going to be equal to math.pow. We'll put in that number, so we're going to use that variable there, and then we have a comma, and then the exponent, so in this case 2 that we want to raise it to. So let's go ahead and take a look at this example. So right here, we'll go ahead and say double number is equal to 4. We'll then go ahead and say double square is equal to our math.pow. And we're going to put in 4 right here. And we'll put 2 right here. So this will actually be with the variable number. So we're going to go ahead and use number representing 4 and then square it. And then let's also go ahead and print that to the console to see the result. So we'll do 4 squared. That should give us 16. So we're going to do square. And so then if we run this, we see that we get 16.0 right there. Another operation that we can use is going to be this square root that we have right here. So with math.square root, this is going to be used to calculate the square root of a number. So again, we can go ahead and use 4 for our example. And then we'll just go ahead and plug that into that math.sqrt, so math.square root method. Let's go ahead and minimize this again. Come over here. And so we're going to use this number 4 again. So we'll just do one more right here. So that'll be our square root. This is going to be equal to math.sqrt. And then we just plug in our value, which is number. And then we can go ahead and print this to the console as well. So you say system.out.println. We'll then put in square root. So then if we take the square root of 4, the result here should be 2. Or since this is a double, it'll be 2.0. And so we can see right here at the very end, that 2.0 that we're getting. Alright, so this is going to wrap up everything for our different arithmetic operators. Going into the next video, we're going to kind of add on to this concept a little bit more by actually looking at the combination of both this assignment operator, so being able to assign a variable, a value to a variable, as well as using these math operators. So we're going to take a look at how we can actually go about combining these operators together.